Just before 10 a.m. today, Clearwater Fire and Rescue, along with the Clearwater Police Department, responded to a house in the 1000 block of El Dorado Avenue for a medical-related call. It was discovered at that time Terry Bollea, also known as Hulk Hogan, was experiencing a serious medical-related issue. Personnel provided medical treatment at that time and transported Mr. Bollea to Morton Plant Hospital, where he died at 11:17 a.m. The Clearwater Police Department is conducting a death investigation, which is standard in these types of cases. There are no signs of foul play or suspicious activity related to this call for service at this time.
Hulk Hogan is gone, and with him, one of wrestling's darkest, most personal grudges has been buried forever. The man who once ruled the ring with unmatched charisma, colorful bandanas, and the roar of millions behind him spent his final years haunted not just by controversy, but by bitter resentment he took to the grave. Behind the bright lights, catchphrases, and red and yellow legacy was a man who harbored a secret hatred, not just quiet dislike, but deep-seated loathing for a fellow wrestling legend. He didn't hide it. In interviews, backstage rants, and cold stares caught on camera, Hogan made it clear he couldn't stand this wrestler. And now, after his death, fans are looking back at every icy handshake, every backhanded comment, and every awkward silence, and realizing the truth was always there. But who was this wrestler that pushed the Hulkster to his breaking point? And why did Hogan carry this hatred until the very end? Hulk Hogan may have been the face of professional wrestling in the 1980s and 90s, but behind the muscles, the iconic mustache, and the Hulkamania chants, Terry Bollea, the man behind the persona, was dealing with demons the public never fully saw. From the outside, Hogan was a hero, body-slamming giants, preaching values like loyalty, training, and vitamins. But behind closed doors, things were far more complicated. His career was riddled with personal controversies, betrayal, and a slow unraveling of the squeaky clean image he projected to millions of fans. One of the earliest cracks appeared in his relationship with the WWE. Despite being Vince McMahon's golden boy, Hogan was often accused by other wrestlers of being manipulative backstage, pulling strings to remain in the spotlight, even if it meant holding back rising stars. Many insiders claimed he used his influence to bury younger talent, making sure he never had to share the spotlight. This led to rising resentment within the wrestling locker rooms, which followed him for decades.
91, I wrestled none other than the Golden Goose himself. He goes, "Hey brother, I'm really nervous about taking the tombstone. I got this bad neck." And I was like, "I promise you, I'll take great care of you." And we get into the match, and now it's time for the finish. I'm gonna tombstone him on a chair. I've got him. The chair comes down. Boom! As soon as my knees touch, "Oh brother, you got me. Somebody get my wife and kids on the phone." I'm like, "Oh shit. I just crippled the Golden Goose. I just hurt Hogan." It took a few days before I actually got to see the footage.
But the scandals didn't stop at wrestling politics. In 2007, Hogan's personal life fell apart in the public eye. His son Nick was involved in a devastating car crash that left his best friend with permanent brain damage. As lawsuits mounted and public sympathy shifted, Hogan's image took a huge hit. His marriage to Linda Hogan also imploded in a messy, high-profile divorce filled with accusations of infidelity and emotional abuse. Then came the biggest blow. In 2015, a leaked tape revealed Hogan making racially offensive remarks, sending shockwaves through the industry. WWE severed ties immediately, removing him from the Hall of Fame and scrubbing his presence from their platforms. Hogan's name, once sacred in wrestling history, had become radioactive overnight. Though he eventually made a slow return to the public stage, apologizing and attempting to rebuild his legacy, the damage was done. Fans were split. Some stood by him, others saw a side of Hulk Hogan they could never unsee.
Okay. And I'm just saying, this literally happened to me. You know, my whole life. With Hulkster, I don't agree with all his choices, but you know what? I don't hear people saying all the great things he's done. when he was on the Wheatie box, all those kids that said their prayers and took their vitamins, however you want to, I don't hear him saying that.
Behind the legacy of a wrestling icon was a man constantly battling personal demons, pride, anger, controversy, and scandal, all while wearing the mask of a hero. And according to many close to him, one of those demons was his hatred for a certain wrestler, a grudge that may have consumed him until his final breath.
No wonder Hulk Hogan is hated by everyone. He did 3 unforgivable things. Number 1, he made racist remarks. In 2015, Hulk was fired by WWE after a videotape of him surfaced, filled with offensive comments about his daughter's boyfriend. This caused an uproar, and Hulk had to apologize to the public, but they did not accept his apology. Then in 2024, he publicly mocked Kamala Harris, calling her a chameleon, which once again sparked public outrage. Number 2, he disrespects women. Hulk's family life was also filled with violence. His ex-wife, Linda Hogan, revealed in her memoir that Hulk often threw chairs, ripped shirts, and physically abused her. For the sake of their children, Linda dared not report Hulk, fearing he would treat the kids worse if he became unemployed. Hulk became even more reckless, publicly accusing Linda of lying with no remorse in his words or actions. Number 3, he lies habitually. Hulk once falsely claimed that The Undertaker severely injured him, causing him to lose the 1991 WWE Championship.
In the 1980s, professional wrestling wasn't just entertainment, it was an American cultural force. At the heart of that explosion stood 2 icons, Hulk Hogan and Randy Macho Man Savage. Hogan, with his bleach blonde mustache, bulging biceps, and say your prayers and eat your vitamins persona, was the undeniable face of the WWF. He was marketed as the ultimate American hero. Savage, meanwhile, was the fire to Hogan's calm, a flashy, unpredictable whirlwind of energy who brought a dangerous charisma to the ring. With his raspy voice, neon outfits, and intense promos, Savage became a fan favorite in his own right.
When Randy Savage and Hulk Hogan joined forces to form the Mega Powers, it felt like the biggest alliance in wrestling history. These were the 2 biggest superstars in the WWF, and now they were standing side by side. But eventually, it all came crashing down in one of the most memorable storylines of the era, when Randy turned on Hogan. But while the explosion of the Mega Powers was a brilliant piece of storytelling, there had been real-life tension simmering away between the men backstage.
Despite their differences, the WWF saw dollar signs in their chemistry. The company created one of wrestling's most iconic alliances, the Mega Powers, pairing these 2 superstars as best friends and tag team partners. It was a union built for headlines. Hogan's clean-cut hero image paired with Savage's intensity and flair. They were positioned as the most powerful duo in wrestling, sharing the stage, the spotlight, and even screen time with Savage's real-life wife, Miss Elizabeth. But while the partnership thrilled audiences, it was only a matter of time before it fractured, both in storyline and reality.
You know, my phone would ring at 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning. Hey, I got an idea about that finish at Madison Square Garden. I'm going, Randy, it's 4 o'clock in the morning, brother. I don't care what time it is. You should care as much as I do. I'm like, okay, I care, Randy, I care. It was always just banging heads with him. He'd, instead of a big foot before I go out of the ring, how about just elbow me back over the top rope? I go, okay, Randy, fine, talk in the morning. But he was always on, man, and he was a wild man.
Behind the scenes, the tension was building. Savage was notoriously protective, some say possessive, of Miss Elizabeth. When storylines placed her in Hogan's corner, Savage began to grow suspicious, both on screen and off. He accused Hogan of being too close to Elizabeth, and that tension slowly started bleeding into their performances. What was meant to be fiction was increasingly rooted in real feelings.
Who was your biggest, personal beef with outside the ring?
It was Macho Man. And when he lived on the beach here, we were together every single day. And then when he went through a divorce, he thought I had something to do with it. That turned out to be like an 8-year don't talk to each other thing, which we finally got on the same page about 6 months before he passed away, thank God.
The tipping point came in 1989 during the famous Mega Powers Explode storyline. On camera, Savage turned heel, attacking Hogan after accusing him of coveting Elizabeth. But fans didn't know that Savage's anger wasn't entirely acting. In real life, he believed Hogan had overstepped boundaries, disrespecting his marriage and intentionally trying to upstage him. Their friendship unraveled in front of millions, with promos and interviews filled with real venom disguised as wrestling drama.
With me and Hulk Hogan, it's just, we've been acquaintances at best. Never been best friends, never been friends. Just a business type thing on the television. Everybody knows it's sports entertainment, entertaining the wrestling fans. But sometimes what goes on behind the scenes is stronger than the soap opera on the video scope. And that's what happened with me and Hulk Hogan. His real name is Terry Bollea, my real name is Randy Poffo, and he disrespected me and my family through the media waves, you know?
Their feud would go on to define a major era in wrestling. Even after Savage left WWF and later joined WCW, where Hogan also went, the Cold War between them lingered. There were sporadic reconciliations, but the damage had been done. Savage would go on to say in interviews that he didn't trust Hogan, and that their friendship was never the same. Hogan, meanwhile, often danced around the tension, either downplaying it or offering vague apologies that fans believed lacked sincerity.
You should have bobbed instead of weaved on that. It was a pretty nasty black eye. That was shocking when I saw it. Was one of those really good black eyes that was pretty obvious when you see it. Like, what happened to you? That doesn't look like makeup. That's for real. It was that Savage and Hogan didn't get along.
The drama wasn't just about jealousy or screen time. It represented a deeper clash of egos, pride, and blurred lines between performance and reality. Two legends, once brothers in the ring, ended up in a bitter rivalry that continued until Savage's tragic death in 2011. When Randy Savage tragically passed away in 2011 after suffering a heart attack behind the wheel, the world of wrestling mourned deeply. Fans everywhere were stunned, not just by the sudden loss of one of wrestling's most electrifying performers, but also because so many questions between Savage and Hogan had been left unresolved.
After over 10 years of not talking with Randy, we finally started to talk and communicate. And he had so much life in his eyes and his spirit. I just pray that he's happy and in a better place, and we miss him. We miss him a lot. It's just, I feel horrible about the 10 years that, he wouldn't respond or we had no communication. So this was a tough one.
Hulk Hogan's reaction was complicated and emotional. He publicly stated that he was devastated by the news and revealed that the two had recently reconnected, exchanging a few phone calls after years of silence. Hogan said he had hoped they could finally bury the hatchet, maybe even reunite one last time for the fans. "I just pray that Randy knew how much I loved him," Hogan said in interviews, his voice cracking. He expressed deep regret over how things had gone down between them, saying he wished they had patched things up much earlier. But not everyone bought it.
Hulk Hogan and Macho Man Randy Savage had a complex friendship that oscillated between alliance and rivalry. As the mega powers in the late 1980s, they dominated the WWF with their iconic handshakes symbolizing their bond. However, tensions arose due to Savage's jealousy over Hogan's close relationship with his wife, Miss Elizabeth. This culminated in a dramatic turn at WrestleMania 5, where Savage betrayed Hogan, leading to a fierce feud that saw Hogan capture the WF Championship.
Many fans and former wrestlers questioned Hogan's sincerity. They remembered the bitterness between the two, the subtle jabs Hogan had made in past interviews, and how Savage had clearly remained skeptical of Hogan even into the 2000s. In fact, Savage had never appeared on WWE programming again after his departure, and many believed that had something to do with lingering issues, including with Hogan. Others felt Hogan was being genuine, that maybe in their later years, both men realized how much damage pride had done, and that reconciliation had started, if only too late. Wrestling legends like Bret Hart and Diamond Dallas Page voiced support for Hogan's sentiments, but fans remained divided. The truth? Their feud became one of wrestling's most legendary, not just because of the storyline, but because it felt real. It was real. Ego, fame, trust, betrayal, it was all there, making their bond and their downfall even more unforgettable. While Hulk Hogan's image was carefully crafted to represent strength, honor, and the spirit of professional wrestling, many believe the persona he built was just that, a mask. And behind it, Hogan may have carried secrets darker than anyone ever suspected. One of the most enduring theories is that Hogan lived with deep guilt over how he manipulated and backstabbed other wrestlers behind the scenes. While fans saw him as a larger-than-life hero, insiders in the industry whisper about Hogan's alleged obsession with staying on top, even if it meant sabotaging others. Wrestlers like Bret Hart, the Ultimate Warrior, and of course, Randy Savage, were all at one point close to Hogan, only to later be sidelined, buried in storylines, or blacklisted entirely. Some claim Hogan used his political influence in the locker room to control outcomes, crush rising stars, and secure his legacy no matter who it hurt.
There's so much that Hulk Hogan got away with that I can't understand, like this god-awful attempt at a figure 4 leg lock. I know this man was not busting out flying knees and enziguris in Japan but doesn't know proper holds. Fuck it, it was so nice, why not apply it twice?
Then there are the rumors about an unreleased tell-all, a memoir Hogan allegedly wrote but never published. Some insiders suggest it included explosive details, steroid cover-ups, secret payouts, and the dark underbelly of WWE's golden age. Others say he was pressured not to release it because it would expose too many names, and not just his.
I asked him about steroids at 19. I was taking the Dianabol at the time, and I think it's what I was doing, and probably some tests and something else. But I wanted to know if he would be honest about it, and I was curious. So I raised my hand at 19, and hey, Hulk, did you? And he said no, and he may not ever have it in his life. He's a big guy, who knows?
Another theory gaining traction since his death is that Hogan had been sitting on evidence related to the WWE's long-rumored toxic backstage culture, Xerania, one that allegedly included drug abuse, hazing, and even criminal behavior. Fans have pointed out how, despite being at the center of nearly every major controversy in WWE history, Hogan somehow always walked away relatively untouched, protected, some say, by a silent agreement of mutual secrets.
Hulk Hogan was one of promoter Vince McMahon's biggest WWF megastars in the 1980s. The U.S. Department of Justice indicted McMahon in 1994, putting the promoter on trial on charges of steroid distribution. Hogan was called to testify. When faced with questions under oath, Hogan admitted to taking them. He said steroid use was fairly common among WWF wrestlers in the 80s. Hogan claimed he never took the drugs for performance-enhancing purposes, but rather to work through injuries. Despite Hogan's testimony, McMahon was acquitted of the charges.
On 3 different occasions, I had the same type muscle injuries. That is the extent of Hulk Hogan's steroid use.
But perhaps the most chilling speculation is this. Hogan's hatred for certain wrestlers wasn't just personal, it was strategic. Some believe that by keeping others down, he was hiding the fact that he feared being exposed, that someone, maybe even Randy Savage, knew something the world wasn't supposed to find out, something Hogan took to the grave. Whether any of these theories are true, one thing is certain. The real story behind Hulk Hogan isn't as simple as red and yellow tights, finger-pointing poses, and say your prayers, take your vitamins. What he left behind is a legacy wrapped in glory and shadowed by suspicion. As the world woke up to the news of Hulk Hogan's death, the reaction was instant and deeply divided. Fans who grew up watching Hogan slam giants and deliver iconic promos were heartbroken. Thousands flooded social media with tribute posts, sharing childhood memories of watching him on their TVs, wearing Hulkamania shirts and mimicking his legendary poses. For them, this wasn't just the loss of a wrestler, it was the end of a piece of their youth.
Triple H has just posted his reaction to the death of Hulk Hogan. This one feels like it came from deep in the heart. Triple H didn't just work with Hogan. He helped carry WWE through eras that Hogan helped build. And now, with Triple H running the show behind the scenes, you can tell how personal this moment really is. Hogan wasn't just a superstar, he was the superstar. He was the blueprint for everything that came after. And Triple H knows that better than anyone. He's always respected history, always talked about honoring the legends, and now he's watching one of the biggest icons of all time leave us.
He was my childhood, one fan wrote. No matter what happened later, nothing will erase the magic he brought to the ring. But not everyone mourned with rose-colored glasses. For years, Hogan had been a controversial figure, embroiled in scandals, lawsuits, and public fallout. Many remembered the racial slurs, the legal drama, and how some of his peers had distanced themselves from him. And now, in death, those divisions only deepened. Wrestling legends and fellow performers shared more complicated tributes. Ric Flair tweeted, "We had our differences, but we built something legendary together. Rest easy, brother." Others, like Bret Hart, remained silent, refusing to join the chorus of praise or criticism. Among the most emotional tributes came from younger wrestlers who had idolized Hogan growing up. One AEW star posted, "He made me want to step into the ring. No matter what, I can't deny what he meant to me when I was 10 years old." Still, a more cynical wave surged across the internet. Some questioned why so many were quick to forgive, calling the flood of tributes hypocritical. Others pointed to his cryptic final words, speculating that there was still much the public didn't know, perhaps secrets that would tarnish or even completely reshape his legacy. In the end, Hogan's death didn't just bring closure, it reopened wounds. His life was one of larger-than-life fame, but also of deep contradiction. And even in his passing, he continues to divide the very world that once worshipped him. Hulk Hogan's death marks the end of an era, a name that once echoed in sold-out arenas, now etched into history with equal parts glory and controversy. He was a giant in the ring, but a flawed man outside of it. And while his legacy will forever remain split between adoration and outrage, one thing is certain: he made the world watch. From his unforgettable matches to the storm of scandal that surrounded him, Hogan lived and died on his own terms. He left behind not just fans, but questions. Not just memories, but myths. And in his final moments, with a secret he never revealed and a name he couldn't forgive, Hulk Hogan reminded us that even legends carry burdens too heavy to drop. Rest in power, Hulk Hogan. Loved, hated, but never ignored.